Hello and welcome back to another episode of Kate Makes. Today I'm doing something different. I'm going to make some fabric masks out of some fat quarters from Aldi. Fat quarters are 45 by 56 centimetres. These say they were £4.99, but I got them for £2.99. Now, one fat quarter will make 6 masks. Before I get into it, I want to make a quick disclaimer. I am very aware that fabric masks are not nearly as effective in stopping the spread of COVID-19 as medical grade masks. However, there are a few benefits to a fabric mask than to nothing at all. They can stop the spread of saliva or prevent the wearer from touching their face. Also, since this kind of PPE has been relocated to the front lines, other departments such as maternity wards are desperate for any kind of protection. I made a small sample of masks mainly to see if I could, should I need to make more. The idea was given to me by the website makemasks2020.org, which sends donated masks to US organisations that need them. I'm still looking for a similar UK initiative and may contact non-frontline NHS departments directly myself. The method I'm using is an adaptation of a pattern by Button Counter, altered slightly just for the dimensions of the fabric that I already had. If you're making masks to donate, please do check which pattern your recipient requires and stick to that. On a personal note, my mum, who works for the NHS as a speech therapist, has volunteered to be relocated to a maternity ward, so I'm very keen for her to have some kind of protection. The best way that you can protect her is by staying at home unless you absolutely have to leave. Now, let's get on with the tutorial. For this project, I'm using my rotary cutter and mat, and I'm also using a plastic ruler. I've also got some elastic, it's 5mm wide, and I'm going to use the 7mm one as well. I'm also using my fitted sheet as lining. Now first up, I'm going to open out my fat quarter. I'm going to press it completely flat, and then I'm going to fold it in half along the shorter edge. Now once I've got that folded in half, I've now got a 22.5cm by 56cm. Piece of fabric. I'm folding that in half again, and I'm going to start cutting the piece down. I marked on my ruler with tape the sizes that I need. We're going to be cutting a piece that's about 8¼ inches by 7 inches, or 22cm by 18cm. So now I've got 2 strips that are 56cm by 22cm. I also realised that my mat has centimetres printed on it, so I'm going to use those instead. I'm cutting these to 18cm each. Like I said, I'll get 6 of these out of each fat quarter. I'm doing the same with my lining fabric. I ended up getting 8 of these out of the piece of fabric that I cut from my sheet. But of course you'll get more from a whole sheet. Now I'm putting the wrong sides together and sewing along the longer edges. Once that's sewn, I turn it over and press it with an iron, and it now measures about 6 inches. So now I'm going to put some pleats in. First up, I'm measuring a line 1 inch from the bottom. Then I'm doing 1 inch above that. Then I'm doing ½ inch above that. And then another inch above that. ½ inch above that. And finally, another inch. So to recap, it's 1 inch, 1 inch, ½ inch, 1 inch, ½ inch, and another inch. I've said inch too many times now, it sounds weird. And I'm making my pleats by joining my first line to my second line and pinning in place on both sides. And then I'm going to join my third line to my fourth line. and my 5th line to my 6th line. Once that's all done, I'm going to press these with an iron, and then I'm going to sew these pleats in place using an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on both sides. Once that's pressed and sewn, I'm going to use my elastic. I'm cutting the elastic to 6.5 inches each, and I'm cutting 2 of these per mask. I'm now pinning these about 1 centimetre away from the long edges, being careful not to twist the elastic as I do so. See, now that would be a twist of the elastic, but instead I want it to lie flat. It's going to make it a lot more comfortable to wear. And again, I'm going to sew these with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. When that's done, the mask is technically wearable, but those raw edges are making me feel a bit anxious, so we're going to neaten those up a bit. From my spare sheet fabric, I'm cutting 2 strips of 1.5 inches wide each. I'm folding those each in half lengthways, and I'm going to press them. When that's done, with the right sides together, I'm pinning the raw edge to the raw edge, like so. I'm going to trim the overhang to about 1/2 inch. They don't need to be perfect, just approximate. Then I'm folding these overhangs over and pinning them to the back. When that's all done, I'm sewing down each edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. When they're sewn, I'm trimming the seam allowance down to about 1/8 of an inch. And then I'm going to fold the white strips to the other side. This is going to encase the raw edges of that side and make everything look a bit neater and make it last a bit longer. When these are pinned in place, I'm going to sew just across the top of these. And with that, the mask is done. I probably should have used a lighter thread, but there we go. It's still going to be usable. Once I've made all of my fat quarters into masks, I'm going to press them and then I'm going to wash them on a hot wash. Here's my mum modelling her mask. Like I said, the best way to keep NHS workers like my mum safe is to stay indoors unless you absolutely have to leave. Thank you so much to the NHS workers who are keeping us safe during this tricky time. And if this video has inspired you to make some masks, please do look into the different initiatives wherever you're based. Thank you so much for watching this video. Do feel free to subscribe to the channel, follow me on social media at KateButch1, and I'll be back very soon with another episode of Kate Makes.